Everybody, TC Bradley, host of God Made Millionaire TV, with a special edition of our show called Into the Vault. It's been my heart's desire since we started our show to provide a platform for faith-based entrepreneurs to come and to share their God-given dreams. Along with that process, you have people that reach out to us from our viewing audience and they say, TC, can you share some insights? Can you take some time and share some insights to help us activate our God-given dreams? And ladies and gentlemen, that's the purpose of Inside the Vault. It's where I can deep dive on some of these topics with you to help you elevate your life, elevate your finances, elevate your business, and activate their God-given dreams, your God-given dreams. On this debut episode of Inside the Vault with TC Bradley, I'm going to deep dive on a very, very personal story of mine, a very emotional story of mine that happened to me 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I had a sudden cardiac arrest where I was clinically dead for a minute and a half to 2 minutes. A minute and a half to 2 minutes, no breath, no breathing, flatlined for a minute and a half to 2 minutes. Before the paramedics revived me, they shocked me 2 times to bring me back to life that early morning. Now, ladies and gentlemen, every time I've shared this story to anybody, I'm talking to individuals, tough men, men that are legitimately tough men. I've seen them cry. Tears. It has impacted people. Ladies, when I've shared the story with ladies, they've had such a deep emotional connection to the story, and it's so profound in the lessons that I learned from that cardiac death that I experienced 10 years ago. So I want to take you into this story, and I want to just give you a heads up, if I may. This is a very emotional story for me. This is a story. I was on the way to the studio this morning, and I was just in tears, remembering the goodness of God over my life and what He had done for me. And here's what I want you to know, is that what God has done for me, He can do for you. So many are watching the show right now, and you need a miracle. You're standing at the point of need. Maybe you've been diagnosed with a life-threatening illness. Maybe your finances are on a death's door. Maybe you have a relationship that is challenged right now, and it's on its last legs. You need a miracle. This is your show, TC Bradley Inside the Vault, sharing the God Says When story. I want to take you into that morning of what happened to me, this life-changing experience of mine. That night, I retired to go to sleep, and before so, I wasn't feeling well, wasn't feeling up to speed, and I took a jacuzzi. We have a jacuzzi bathtub, and I figured, okay, nice relaxing bath, that would help me out. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I had such indigestion in my chest. It felt like I had 2 hands coming up my chest, going to my throat. And I knew something was terribly wrong. I then went to bed. I figured, well, if I lay down, maybe, just maybe, I'll get some relief. This is the first time that it had ever happened to me. Well, I couldn't get a position of comfort, so I got up to go downstairs to get a drink of water. It's that time that my wife woke up and she said, honey, what's wrong? And I said, I'm not feeling well. I'm having some chest pain. I want to go downstairs and get a glass of water. She got up immediately. I went downstairs, got a glass of water, got some baby aspirin, and took the baby aspirin, because if you ever do have chest pain, folks, that's one of the first things you have to do is take some baby aspirins. That's what they recommend. So that's what I did immediately, is took some baby aspirin and a glass of water, but it didn't do any good. within a few seconds, I felt so nauseous. I felt very, very nauseous, and I started to get overheated. So I went to the bathroom, and I laid on the tile floor. We have tile throughout our home, and I laid on that cool tile to cool down because I was getting overheated. And ladies and gentlemen, that's when the left arm of mine went numb. It was like tingly, and it went numb. It was in this position, laying in that bathroom floor, that my wife, when she came downstairs to check on me, found me. And she said, "I'm going to call 911. I said, "Please, don't call 911. I just need a cool rag for my forehead. I need to get cooled down, sweetheart." She didn't listen to me. She called 911, so I knew that the paramedics were on their way. Ladies and gentlemen, when they came in like alpha dogs into my home. They were on point, they were ready, and they hooked me up to monitors, and I asked them, I said, "Am I having a heart attack?" And they said, "Mr. Bradley, we cannot give you a medical diagnosis, but we strongly recommend that you go to the hospital." And I said, "Unless you can tell me I'm having a heart attack, I'm not going," because you see, ladies and gentlemen, I felt that whatever I had been going through, that I had overcome. I felt like, okay, and I don't know if it was due to the fact that the paramedics were there and I had a sense of relief that somebody that could help me was there. But I was feeling better and I was refusing to go, and they really were insisting that I go, and I'm off in the distance. My wife is standing there, Miss Vicky. Unbeknownst to me, ladies and gentlemen, I was dying right before her very eyes. Vicky is in the healthcare industry and so loving, so kind, and she sat in the distance and she saw me, and she said to me afterwards, "Your color was ashen gray." And I saw that I had upset my wife of 32 years. And she looked at me, and I said, I looked at her, and I said, "Do you want me to go to the hospital?" And she looked at me, and she said, "Do you want to live, or do you want to die? Do you want to live, or do you want to die?" Now, this is a message for the ladies that are watching this. Understand that you have husbands that you think don't listen to you. You have husbands that you think don't hear you. Understand this, understand this, sister. Your husband hears every word you say. I heard my wife in that moment. I knew that I had upset her, and I would never, ever do that in a million years. So, ladies that are watching this, understand your husband hears you. I heard her loud and clear, and I said, "Do you really think I should go?" And she said, "Yes, I do, honey." And I said, "Okay, I'll go." I told those paramedics, "Okay, I'll go." So the paramedics, on hearing that I agreed to go to the hospital, immediately they sprung into action, and they said, "Mr. Bradley, can you walk to the stretcher?" And I got on the stretcher, and as they rolled me out of my home that early morning, I felt that indigestion start creeping up. I felt those hands start to creep up around my neck. And they rolled me down my driveway. They hoisted me up into the back of that ambulance. And I remember seeing my wife, Vicky, outside the ambulance of 32 years. And I blew a kiss to Miss Vicky. And I remember feeling funny, and I said to the paramedic, "I feel funny." That was the last thing that I said. Immediately, I was no longer in that ambulance. Immediately, I'm on a train platform. And I've got my hands in my pockets like this, and I'm looking left and I'm looking right because there's speeding trains on both sides of me. It's like a silver train, and on the side of these trains, are LED screens, huge LED screens, and I'm seeing my life flash before my very eyes on these LED screens. I'm literally seeing this on both of these trains, and they're going at such a rapid pace into this tunnel. And because they had these LED lights on that tunnel, you could see the brightness of that tunnel. And I'm standing there on this train platform, and I'm looking left and I'm looking right, and I'm trying desperately to figure this out. I'm confused. I'm like, what is it that I am seeing here? I'm trying to get it sorted out in my brain, and all of a sudden, bam, I am back in that ambulance. I am back in that ambulance. The sirens are going. The intensity of that moment, whoever was driving that ambulance was doing so with a profound sense of urgency. And the paramedic, Ray, who was working on me, when I last saw him, he looked clean. He looked fresh at that moment in time. But when I came back in that moment, he had looked like he had been on a treadmill for an hour working hard because he was sweating, and he looked over the top of me and he goes, "Dude, you're the 1%. And I said, "What do you mean I'm the 1%? He said, 99% never come back from where you just were. I said, "Where was I?" He said, "You were gone. You were gone in that moment." And I have to tell you that in that moment, I didn't accept what this man said to me. I didn't accept it. I did not accept it. Just because you tell me that doesn't mean that that's the way it went down. But I'm thinking, oh, what is going on here? At that precise moment in time, ladies and gentlemen, my wife, when I was fighting for my life inside that ambulance, my wife knew something was terribly wrong. And she was outside of that ambulance, and she was pacing back and forth, pacing back and forth. And she didn't know what to pray. All she could say was, "Jesus, Jesus, Jesus." So all she could do was say, "Jesus." And I want you to know something. It's very important that you realize this. I did not make deals with God for my life. I did not make a deal with God for my life. I didn't. You know, some people, you get on a deathbed and they're going to make a deal. If you do this for me, God, I'm going to do that. No, I didn't make any deals with God. I knew that something had happened to me. I knew in that moment my life had been forever changed, but I just had a peace in the midst of the storm. I had a peace in the midst of the fire that I was in, that I had found myself thrust into. Ladies and gentlemen, it's never too late. If God can breathe life into my dead body, if God can raise me up, he can do a miracle for you. He can do a miracle for you. So they rushed me in to the hospital. They rushed me into the hospital. Whoever was driving that ambulance, profound sense of urgency. And I've seen movies, I've seen TV shows. Nothing will replicate the terror that you would feel if you didn't know the Lord in that moment. If I didn't know the Lord in that moment, I would be doing a deal with the Lord at that time. But like I said, I had such a peace that passed all understanding. And God was with me every step of the way, just the way he's going to be with you through your fire, through your situation, through your circumstances. God is going to be there for you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a brief time out, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to wrap up our God Says One story on God Made Millionaire TV Inside the Vault. Hey everybody, T.C. Bradley, host of God Made Millionaire TV, and I was thinking the other day of how my life was profoundly impacted and changed for the better when I published my first book, Supernatural Success. Within 45 days of publishing that book, I signed a major TV deal to feature and promote my book on that TV show. After that, I published another book, got invited back to another TV show. If you're watching this video, listen, you've been given a God-given dream to publish a book. He's given you an assignment to do, and like me, you want to try to talk yourself out of it. I didn't talk myself out of it, and my life was profoundly changed. I want to help you publish your book. If you've been given a God-given dream, an assignment to publish your book, well, we have a publishing company designed specifically from A to Z to handle all of those details for you. All you need to do right now at this point is set an appointment up with our publishing company so that we can talk to you about bringing your book to the marketplace and your voice to the nations on our show, God Made Millionaire TV, as a published author. Ladies and gentlemen, when I was in that ambulance and the ambulance was going to the hospital with such a profound sense of urgency, it's like this scripture came to life inside that ambulance. It's Isaiah 43:2. When thou passest through the waters, I will be with thee, and through the rivers they shall not overflow thee. When thou walkest through the fire, neither shall the flame kindle upon thee, because I am the Lord thy God. Ladies and gentlemen, that scripture came to life for me in that moment, that for regular people, for people that didn't know the Lord, it would be a terrifying moment in their life, but it literally came to life for me that early morning. And they rushed me into the hospital, and they called what I refer as the cardiac SEAL team to come in to operate on me immediately. Immediately, I was in critical condition as I arrived into that emergency room, and they told me, and I want you to understand this, those of you in the medical community, they said to me, Mr. Bradley, you're in the right place. You're in great hands. You are going to be taken well care of. We're on this. You're going to be fine. We're capable. Their words gave me comfort, ladies and gentlemen. Those of you that are doctors, don't underestimate the power you have in those critical moments to encourage people in those moments. They were getting me prepped to take me into surgery at that moment. And I realized I came face to face with my mortality. I came face to face in that moment in time with the fact that I could go through those doors, and when I come back out, if I come back out, my life could be altered so much so. I knew that it was no guarantee that I would even come through those doors again. And I saw my wife off in the distance, and they started to wheel me in, and I stopped them. I said, stop what you're doing. Stop. I said, I want my wife to pray for me. I want my wife to pray for me. You see, ladies and gentlemen, if this was going to be it for me, if this was going to be the moment that this is the end of the ride for T.C. Bradley, I wanted that moment between my wife and myself. I wanted that to be a moment of prayer. I wanted that memory to be a moment of prayer. And I don't know how Vicki got through that prayer. I cannot tell you what she prayed, but I can tell you that we did pray, and it was one of the most significant moments of my entire life, of my entire marriage. She prayed for me, and then they wheeled me through, and they operated on me in that moment. 2 hours in operation, 2 hours I was in surgery, and it turned out that I had 100% blockage in my left ascending artery. They call that the widowmaker. They call that the widowmaker. It is so catastrophic. It is so catastrophic that I had a blockage, 100% blockage in that left ascending artery. And they had to go in, and they put 2 stents in to me during that surgery. And I stayed awake. The anesthesia that they used on me was, so I was a little bit out, but I was still present in case they needed to speak to me. And I kept my eyes open the entire time during that surgery. And I can tell you that then when they wheeled me in after the surgery into the cardiac intensive care unit, my life was changed. My life was altered. I could not believe how weak my voice was. They had inserted a pump into my chest, into by my heart, to help my heart pump, to take the strain off of my heart. I was in critical condition in that intensive care unit, ladies and gentlemen, and I knew my life was forever altered. I knew that it was forever altered. And I can tell you, as I recovered over the next day or two, I had one question from my wife. I had one question for my wife. I said, did I really die? You must find the paramedic that saved my life, and you've got to ask him, did I really die in that ambulance? Because mentally I didn't want to accept it in my brain that this had occurred. Yes, they were saying it to me, but like I said, just because you say it doesn't mean that I believe it. And I was in the bed of that cardiac intensive care unit. I was in the bed, and my wife called me on the phone, and she was talking about how she had met the paramedic at the fire station. And I said, she was so excited telling me the story, and I said, honey, I need to know, did I really die that morning? She said, yes, honey, you did. Ladies and gentlemen, I broke in that hospital bed. It was one of the most intense moments of my life. That moment was intense because, you see, I had been denying what God had done in my life. I'd been denying his intervention in my life. I wouldn't face it head to head. And in that moment, I realized how big my God is, and I realized how little I was in the moment, in the scheme of things. It wasn't because I was a tough guy that I was sitting there. It wasn't because I served in the military that I was sitting there. It was because my God intervened in that moment and breathed life in my dead body. And I remember I wept so intensely. I was overcome with emotion, so much so that my wife, bless her heart, she thought I was having another cardiac event because I couldn't talk, couldn't speak. I was so overcome with emotion. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not a man that talks to the enemy. I'm not a man that talks to the devil. But I'm going to tell you something. In that moment in time, in that moment, in that precise moment, I had one conversation with the enemy. And I said, you messed with the wrong guy. Do you hear me? You've messed with the wrong man. Because I still had my giftings, I still had my abilities, still had my talents. I could still speak. And I said, I'm going to wreck your kingdom. I'm going to do everything within my power to destroy your kingdom. And ladies and gentlemen, from that day to this day, my life has been lived with a profound sense of urgency. A profound sense of urgency with the assignment that I have been given. I have been nothing but consistent with the messaging that I have for you, that if God can raise me up from a deathbed, from being dead without a heartbeat or a pulse for a minute and a half to 2 minutes, he can do a miracle for you. But understand this today. If God can raise me up, if God can breathe life into my body, he can do a miracle for you. Not only can he do it, but he wants to do it. Sir, don't you give up on your God. Don't give up on that church. God raised you up. You feel like you're a failure. What that is, that's a fat man sitting up on your shoulder, whispering in your ear. Those of you, there are some of you right now, you've lost a business. You've lost an incredibly successful business due to this pandemic. And you feel like a failure. You feel like a victim. And I'm here to tell you that you are not a failure. You are a child of God. You are a child of destiny. You are a child of purpose. Don't you dare give up on our God. Your God is there for you. He was there for me. He's no respecter of persons. That person that's watching right now, and you've had a death sentence cast over your life right now. You've had a doctor that has proclaimed a death sentence over your life. I come against that in the name of Jesus. I come against it in the name of Jesus. I'll end by saying this to you, ladies and gentlemen. Lying in that intensive care unit, I knew that God had called me to write a book. I knew He'd called me to write a book. And I did so within 90 days of being released from the hospital. The book is called God Says When. And I had a young man that reached out to me after he read it, and he said, "Sir, I want you to know something." He said, "I'm not a religious man." He said, "I'm very spiritual." He said, "I'm a Buddhist. I'm a Buddhist." And he said, "When I read your book, especially that part where they were getting ready to wheel you in for emergency surgery," he said, "I had a tear come through my eyes." He said, "It really got to me." I said, "Sir, let me explain something to you. I appreciate that you enjoyed the book, but it wasn't some fat man that hiked his fat behind up in that ambulance and breathed life into my dead body that morning. It was not. It was a man that conquered hell, death, and the grave. He came in, unbeknownst to those paramedics, and he breathed life into my dead body." And I'm going to end by saying this to you, what my wife said to me that morning. Do you want to live, or do you want to die? Do you want to live, or do you want to die? Do you want that church to live, or do you want it to die? Do you want that relationship to live, or do you want it to die? Do you want that business to live, or do you want it to die? Well, I've got good news for you. Your God is able. Your God has been there right from the start, and He's going to take you through. Don't give up. Don't give up on your God. Don't you dare. I believe in you. I believe in you. Until next time on God Made Millionaire Inside the Vault, don't you give up on your God.